The Rural Providers Conference has its rituals and traditions, and one of those is that it moves to a new community every 2 years. 2 years on the road system, then 2 years in a rural hub accessible only by boat and airplane. So this year and next year, it'll be Nome's turn to put its own stamp on a grassroots movement to help communities bring hope and healing. If this beach could talk, what a story it would tell. Thousands of miners camping here. A city population that swelled to 20,000 at the peak of the gold rush in the early 1900s, with newcomers who brought their hard drinking ways and forced changes that have left scars, some still healing. Can you tell me why you drink so much?
I like it, okay?
This sign says Honolulu is 3,000 miles from here, Moscow more than 4,000, as far out of reach as sobriety is for June.
I have 4 grandchildren, and I'm expecting my 5th one in September. My son said I have to sober up by then. I have to.
But June tells us she doesn't know how to quit.
It's not easy. Too much of a drunk. I'm nothing but a drunk.
He didn't talk down at me. He talked with me.
But there are people here at the Rural Providers Conference who once thought the same thing.
I'll do anything. I'll cheat. I'll do anything to get a can of beer. And I said to myself, if I keep on drinking, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to be gone.
23 years of sobriety. Dorcas says she's glad people never gave up on her. And the same for Rose Atatayak, now 11 years into her recovery.
Never washed up. Didn't know how. Amazingly, I didn't get lice.
Rose grew up in an abusive family. Her husband was violent.
And when he raped me, I didn't know that husbands could rape their wives.
Rose hopes her story will help others.
Anyone that needs help, I'm there for anybody.
9 years ago, we lost our son.
Sharing, reaching out, raising awareness, the mainstay of every Rural Providers Conference. It's up to each host community to provide the setting, to choose the issues and the local experts.
Past is present. What happened to our people back then is still with us today.
One of the themes for this conference, intergenerational trauma and how it's an undercurrent in addiction.
Our people have been, for the past 200-300 years, been self-medicating with alcohol.
They say the road to hell is sometimes paved with good intentions.
It went back to the first missionaries that came to the island and said that our dancing and drumming was evil. We were told not to speak our own language.
Then came epidemics that wiped out entire villages. Alcohol only complicated the grieving process.
A cup of alcohol, they were buying it with a pelt, a fox pelt, just for that 1 cup of alcohol.
Many here believe healing can come faster once there's an understanding of the root cause of the disease.
It's a dark spot in our history, and it's something that we always need to be mindful of, just like segregation and slavery in the South and the Holocaust in Germany.
Today, Nome is a community that prides itself on its cultural diversity. Still, on the subject of racism,
it's not something that's very easy to discuss. It's not, something that you want to necessarily discuss at a dinner party, for example. It's tough topics.
While alcohol is an old enemy, there are new threats. Brian Machinsky is from the Southwest Alaska community of Bethel, where heroin addiction is a growing problem.
Your community is just looking for somebody to stand up. And soon as one person stands up, you will see the whole community stand up.
Baczynski says one recovering addict is helping to raise community awareness by telling her story.
The shortest distance between two people is a story.
Over the course of the conference, all kinds of stories are shared.
That's the way it was years ago.
One elder was asked about how Shishmaref survived the influenza epidemic.
We had a very strong tribal government because we knew that once we let sick people in, we'll become sick like them.
At another table, a frank talk about how Native communities sometimes feel disrespected when a new teacher arrives.
It's kind of a clash of two cultures.
One complaint, some teachers don't value Native culture, which keeps the cycle of historical trauma alive.
Our resources are always overlooked. Our community is a resource, our people.
There was also a discussion about how Native children in foster care have a hard time keeping their culture.
Every foster child has their own story.
Marie Ivanoff shared her story about how her mother's chronic alcoholism led to a string of foster parents who didn't care that she was cut off from her culture and family, except for one.
I overheard her telling a man that is my daughter. She didn't say that is my foster daughter, but that is my daughter. And no other foster moms have ever said that about me. And it was very heartwarming. Very, very heartwarming.
The heartbeat of Native communities, family, and culture. The message here, there is strength in numbers, that culture and tradition are one way to heal historical trauma and to protect future generations. Soon, the work begins for next year's conference in Nome, a chance to build on this year's success. Success that was celebrated on the very last night of the conference on the beach, under the light of a full moon. Many of the dancers called this celebration on the beach a historical milestone. The conference has two main sponsors, the Rural Alaska Community Action Program and Coeric, the regional nonprofit for about 20 communities in the Nome area. For web extras on this story, visit the Frontier section of ktva.com.